The stars had never seemed so quiet. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Valor, staring at the view screen that showed nothing but empty space. Somewhere out there, beyond the sensor range, an alien armada was coming. An armada that had already sent their message, their declaration, their ultimatum. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept in 36 hours, not since the transmission arrived. The transmission that changed everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. "Commander, we're receiving another hail from Earth Command," said Lieutenant Kate Sullivan from the communication station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. Everyone on the bridge felt it. The weight of knowing that first contact with alien life had not gone the way anyone hoped. "Put it through," Jake said, straightening his uniform out of habit. Admiral Gary Chen's face appeared on the screen. The older man looked as exhausted as Jake felt. Behind him, the command center on Earth buzzed with activity. Officers moved back and forth, screens flickered with data, and the organized chaos of a world preparing for war filled the background. "Morrison, status report," Gary said without preamble. "All ships in defensive formation around the lunar orbit, sir. We've got 23 vessels ready, another 12 in reserve near Mars. The civilian transports have been evacuated to the outer colonies as ordered." Jake paused, then asked the question everyone wanted to know. "Any word from the diplomatic corps? Any chance they'll talk?" Gary's expression darkened. "The aliens sent their response an hour ago. I'm forwarding it to you now." The screen split, and Jake watched the alien transmission for the third time. The being that appeared was tall, with blue-gray skin and eyes that seemed too large for its angular face. It wore what looked like ceremonial armor, decorated with symbols that human linguists were still trying to decode. "I am High Commander Thexlar of the Valorian Empire, speaking for the Confederation of Advanced Species," the alien said. Its voice was translated by their own technology, sounding oddly musical. "Your species has been evaluated. You have achieved faster-than-light travel, which grants you the right to be acknowledged. However, your world possesses resources that the Confederation requires. You will submit to our authority and provide tribute, or you will face war." The alien paused, and something that might have been a smile crossed its face. "We understand you are new to galactic society. You do not know the proper ways of conflict. We will teach you. In 7 of your days, our grand fleet will arrive at your home system. You will meet us in honorable combat, and when you lose, you will accept our terms. This is the civilized way. This is how the galaxy has maintained order for 3,000 years. The transmission ended. Jake had watched it before, but it still made his blood run cold. Not because of the threat, but because of the casual arrogance in every word. "They think we're primitives," Jake said quietly. "They're not entirely wrong," Gary replied. "We've had FTL drives for less than 50 years. They've had them for millennia. Their technology is more advanced, their ships are bigger, and they have the resources of a dozen worlds backing them. But," Jake heard the unspoken word in Gary's tone, "but Captain Helen Cruz has been studying their transmissions, their ship formations, everything they've shown us. She thinks we have an advantage they don't expect." The screen changed again, and a woman in her 40s appeared. Helen Cruz had been a military historian before joining the Defense Corps. She had written 3 books on warfare throughout human history. Now that knowledge might be the only thing standing between humanity and subjugation. "Commander Morrison," Helen said, nodding. "I've been reviewing everything we know about the Confederation's military doctrine. It's fascinating and terrifying in equal measure." "Explain," Jake said, leaning forward. Helen pulled up a holographic display. It showed alien ship formations, battle recordings that had been shared as part of the Confederation's cultural exchange data dump. Jake watched as massive vessels arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns, moving with precision and grace. "They fight wars like chess games," Helen explained. "Look at this battle between the Valorians and another species called the Korthan. Both fleets meet at a predetermined location. They arrange themselves in formation. Then they engage in what amounts to a formal duel. Ships target ships of equal class. There are rules about when you can withdraw, how you request honorable surrender, even protocols for rescuing defeated crews." Jake frowned. "That sounds like something from ancient Earth history. Like medieval tournaments." "Exactly," Helen said, her eyes lighting up. "The Confederation has been fighting this way for so long that they've turned warfare into a ritual. It's civilized, as they say. Minimal casualties, clear rules, and everyone knows their place afterward. The winner gets territory or resources, the loser accepts terms, and galactic society continues. So what's our advantage? Jake asked. Helen's expression turned grim. We don't fight that way. We never have. Humans have spent our entire history finding new and terrible ways to kill each other. We've done guerrilla warfare, total war, asymmetric warfare, psychological warfare. We've fought dirty, fought smart, and fought to win by any means necessary. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan spoke up from her station. You're saying we should cheat? I'm saying we should fight to win, Helen corrected. The aliens expect us to meet them in open space, arrange our ships in proper formation, and engage in their version of honorable combat. They expect us to lose, accept their terms, and become another species under their control. And if we don't? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we teach them that war is not a game, Helen said quietly. We show them what happens when you threaten a species that has been at war with itself since we learned to throw rocks. Admiral Gary Chen's voice cut through the tension. The Council has authorized military action. Captain Cruz's strategy has been approved. Morrison, you'll be coordinating with Colonel Ben Hayes on the outer defense line. Your job is not to win a glorious battle. Your job is to make them bleed. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. What exactly is the strategy, sir? Helen pulled up a new display. The aliens will arrive in 7 days. They'll expect us to be waiting in formation. Instead, we're going to disappear. Every ship, every station, every satellite, we're going dark. When they arrive, they'll find an empty solar system. And then? Kate asked. Then we hit them when and where they don't expect it, Helen said. We use the asteroids, the planets, the moons. We attack their supply ships, not their battleships. We target their communications, their sensors, their ability to coordinate. We don't fight their fight. We make them fight ours. Jake looked at the tactical display, his mind already racing through the implications. It was brilliant and brutal. The aliens would be expecting a conventional engagement. Instead, they would face an enemy that refused to play by the rules. They'll call it dishonorable, Jake said. Let them, Gary replied. Honor doesn't matter when you're enslaved. Captain Morrison, you have your orders. Make the preparations. In 7 days, the Confederation is going to learn a very hard lesson about humanity. The transmission ended, leaving Jake alone with his crew. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Finally, Kate spoke. Sir, are we really going to do this? Fight them the way Captain Cruz described? Jake thought about the alien transmission, about High Commander Thexlar's casual assumption that humanity would simply roll over and accept subjugation. He thought about every war in human history, every desperate battle where the odds were impossible and victory came through cunning, adaptation, and sheer refusal to give up. Yes, Jake said firmly, we're going to fight them. But not the way they expect, not the way they want. We're going to fight them the way humans have always fought when our survival is at stake. He turned to his crew, seeing the mix of fear and determination on their faces. Send orders to all ships. We're implementing the cruise protocol. All vessels are to begin stealth procedures, shut down all non-essential systems, kill all external lights, and move to designated positions behind lunar cover. We're going to make our solar system look empty. And when they arrive? Kate asked. Jake smiled, and it was not a kind smile. When they arrive, we're going to show them why you should never threaten a species that has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare. Over the next 7 days, Earth's defense fleet scattered. Ships moved behind planets, hid in asteroid fields powered down to minimal life support. Humanity held its breath and waited. In command centers across Earth, military officers studied every scrap of information about the Confederation. They planned, prepared, and readied weapons that would have horrified the aliens if they knew they existed. On the 7th day, the Confederation fleet arrived. 200 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They arranged themselves in perfect formation, a display of power and precision that would have intimidated any civilization that fought by their rules. High Commander Thexlar stood on the bridge of his flagship, expecting to see the primitive human fleet arrayed before him. Instead, his sensors showed nothing. Empty space, silent planets, no response to their hails. The Valorian command ship was in chaos. Officers shouted reports across the bridge while High Commander Thexlar tried to understand what had just happened. 3 scouts destroyed in less than a minute. No warning, no formal challenge. It went against everything the Confederation stood for. Get me a full tactical analysis, Thexlar ordered, forcing his voice to remain calm. Where did the attacks come from? Multiple vectors, Commander, his tactical officer replied, confusion clear in her voice. The weapons came from at least 6 different locations. Small craft, we think, but they disappeared immediately after firing. Our sensors cannot locate them. Thexlar studied the holographic display. The attack vectors made no sense. The humans had struck from behind planetary bodies from asteroid clusters, using the solar system itself as cover. It was not how space combat was supposed to work. Fleets met in open space where honor and skill determined the victor. Send a transmission to the human leadership, Thexlar said. Tell them their dishonorable attack will not be tolerated. Demand they meet us in proper combat. The communication officer worked for several minutes, then looked up with frustration. Commander, all our hails are being blocked. Something is interfering with our long-range communications. That is impossible, Thexlar said. Our communication systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. Nevertheless, Commander, we cannot reach Earth or any human authority. Only short-range communications between our ships are working. Thexlar felt anger building. The humans were not just fighting dishonorably. They were making it impossible to even discuss terms. This was not war. This was savagery. Fine, he said coldly. If they will not respond to civilized contact, we will proceed to their homeworld and force them to engage. All ships advance formation. We move to Earth. The Valorian fleet began its stately advance through the solar system. 200 massive warships, each one a masterpiece of engineering and military power, moved in perfect geometric formation. It was a sight that had brought dozens of species to their knees. What they did not see were the hundreds of human eyes watching them from hidden positions throughout the system. Colonel Ben Hayes sat in his stealth ship, drifting silent among the rocks of the asteroid belt. His vessel was powered down to minimal systems, its hull coated with materials that absorbed sensor sweeps. To the alien fleet, he was just another piece of space debris. All units hold position, Ben whispered into his communicator. Around him, dozens of other human ships waited in the darkness. Let them pass. We're not going after the battleships. Remember the plan. He watched as the alien armada glided past, majestic and vulnerable. The Confederation had arranged their fleet with military vessels at the front and sides, creating a protective formation around their center. That was where the supply ships traveled, along with command vessels and support craft. Captain Lisa Park, you have the target lock? Ben asked. Confirmed. Lisa's voice came back, calm and professional. Supply ship cluster identified. 16 vessels carrying fuel, ammunition, and provisions. All units on my mark, Ben said, watching the tactical timer count down. Remember, hit fast, hit hard, and get out. Do not engage the military vessels. 3, 2, 1, mark. 30 human ships lit up their engines simultaneously. They burst from hiding spots throughout the asteroid belt. Acceleration pushing them to speeds the alien sensors barely registered before it was too late. They did not target the mighty battleships or the proud destroyers. They went straight for the vulnerable support vessels in the center of the formation. The first the Valorians knew of the attack was when a supply ship exploded, hit by 3 separate missiles. Then another went up. And another. The human ships moved like wolves through a flock of sheep, ignoring the shepherds to slaughter the vulnerable. Deploy fighters, Thexlar shouted. Protect the supply train. But by the time the Valorian fighters launched, half the supply ships were already destroyed or crippled. The human vessels scattered in every direction, using thrust patterns that seemed random, but were carefully calculated to avoid the incoming fire. Lisa Park pushed her ship into a hard turn that would have crushed an alien crew under the G-forces. Humans could take more punishment, and they used that advantage ruthlessly. A Valorian fighter tried to pursue her, but she led it straight through a debris field from one of the destroyed supply ships. The fighter had to slow down, choosing safety over pursuit. Lisa did not slow down. She pushed through the debris, her ship taking minor hits, and disappeared behind a large asteroid before the aliens could react. Strike Team Alpha. Report, Ben called out as he executed his own escape maneuver. 7 supply ships destroyed, 3 damaged, came the response. All human vessels accounted for. 0 casualties. Good, return to hiding positions. Next attack window is in 4 hours. Thexlar stared at the damage reports in disbelief. In less than 5 minutes, the humans had crippled a third of his supply train. They had struck without warning, without honor, and without losses. His tactical officer was already working on the numbers. Commander, at this rate of attrition, "We will not have enough fuel and ammunition to sustain fleet operations for more than a week," she said quietly. "Then we will reach Earth within a week." Thexlar snapped. "Increase speed. Tighten formation. Deploy continuous fighter screens. These humans want to fight like cowards? We will show them the price of dishonor." But increasing speed meant burning more fuel. Tightening formation meant the fleet moved as fast as its slowest ship. And deploying continuous fighter screens meant exhausting pilots and draining energy reserves. Every decision Thexlar made played exactly into the human strategy. On Earth, Captain Helen Cruz watched the battle reports with satisfaction. The alien commander was doing exactly what she had predicted. He was reacting with emotion rather than logic, making decisions based on his cultural expectations rather than tactical reality. "How long until they reach Earth?" Admiral Gary Chen asked. "At their current speed, 3 days, Helen replied. "But they'll be low on supplies by then. They're burning through resources trying to protect themselves from attacks that might not even come. Will we attack again?" "Absolutely. But not the same way. That's the key, Admiral. The Confederation fights by patterns. They expect their enemies to fight the same way in every battle. We're going to hit them differently every time." The next attack came 8 hours later. This time, instead of hitting the supply train, human forces targeted the Valorian communication relay ships. Commander Steve Morrison led a squadron of small, fast attack craft armed with electronic warfare equipment. They got close enough to launch cyber attacks directly into the alien systems before the Valorians even knew they were there. "Fire EMP bursts on my mark," Steve said, his hand steady on the controls. 3, 2, 1 mark. The electromagnetic pulse weapons were considered barbaric by Confederation standards. They damaged computer systems indiscriminately, caused electronic chaos, and left ships vulnerable. No civilized species would use them because they might damage cultural databases or historical records stored on enemy vessels. Humans did not care about the aliens' cultural databases. The EMP bursts hit 6 Valorian ships simultaneously. Their shields were designed to stop physical projectiles and energy weapons, not electromagnetic warfare. The pulses burned through sensor systems, crashed navigation computers, and left the ships blind and confused. While the Valorians scrambled to restore their systems, another team of human ships appeared. These carried a different kind of weapon entirely. Lieutenant Amy Walker watched her targeting screen light up as her ship approached a disabled Valorian destroyer. "Target locked," she said. "Deploying smart mines." The mines that left her ship were tiny compared to the massive Valorian vessel. They attached themselves to the hull using magnetic grips, too small for the alien point defense systems to target effectively. Once attached, they did not explode. Instead, they began broadcasting. The broadcasts were carefully designed by Earth's Psychological Warfare Division. They contained messages in the Valorian language, transmitted directly through the ship's hull so every crew member could hear them. "Your commanders are leading you to death," the messages said. "You cannot win against an enemy that does not fight by your rules. Surrender now and live. Continue. And you will all die in the darkness of space far from your homes for leaders who do not care about your lives." It was not true exactly, but it did not have to be true. It just had to plant doubt. On the Valorian flagship, Thexlar listened to reports of the new attacks with growing horror. Psychological warfare was mentioned in the historical texts as something primitive species once practiced, but no civilized culture had used such tactics in over 1,000 years. "Remove those devices immediately," he ordered. "We're trying, Commander," his engineering officer replied. "But they're too small for our heavy weapons, and sending repair crews outside the ship during combat is against protocol." "Damn the protocol," Thexlar shouted, then caught himself. He had never lost his temper in a military situation before. Never. But this war was like nothing he had trained for. "Send the crews. Remove those devices. And find me those human ships." But the human ships were already gone, scattered into the vast darkness. The emergency meeting of the Confederation Council took place across light years of space, projected into a virtual chamber where representatives of 30 species gathered. High Commander Thexlar stood before them, his pride wounded but his back straight. He had requested reinforcements, and now he had to explain why the mighty Valorian fleet needed help against a single primitive world. "The humans do not fight properly," Thexlar said, his voice carrying frustration he could not hide. "They attack without warning, without honor. They target support vessels instead of military ships. They use electronic warfare, psychological tactics, and deception. They refuse every challenge for honorable combat. War Commander Zexnor, leader of the brutal Korthan species, leaned forward with interest. The Korthan were known as the most aggressive members of the Confederation, though even they followed the established rules of warfare. You are telling this council that you cannot defeat one small world? Zexnor's voice dripped with contempt. Perhaps the Valorian Empire has grown soft with peace. Thexlar felt his anger rise but kept it controlled. I am telling the council that conventional tactics do not work against an enemy that refuses to fight conventionally. We need to adapt or send overwhelming force. Then overwhelming force you shall have, Zexnor said, standing. The Korthan will send 3 additional fleets. We will crush these humans and show the galaxy what happens to those who defy civilized warfare. Within days, 3 more Confederation fleets began moving toward Earth. 900 additional ships, carrying weapons that could turn planets to dust. The Confederation had decided to end the human problem permanently and restore order to their perfect galaxy. On Earth, Admiral Gary Chen received the intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. They're sending more ships. That means we're hurting them. It also means we're about to face overwhelming odds, General Linda Hayes said. She had taken command of Earth's expanded defense strategy. We can't use the same tactics against 4 fleets that we used against 1. No, Captain Helen Cruz agreed. We need to escalate. It's time to bring the war to them. She pulled up a holographic map of nearby space. Red markers showed the incoming Confederation fleets. Blue markers showed human forces, significantly smaller in number. But there were also yellow markers scattered throughout Confederation territory. What are those? Gary asked. Opportunities, Helen said with a slight smile. The Confederation controls dozens of star systems. Those systems have shipyards, resource extraction facilities, research stations, and civilian populations. They're all completely undefended because the Confederation has never had to defend them. Everyone fights by the rules, remember? Linda caught on immediately. You want to attack their home territory. I want to make them understand that if they threaten Earth, nowhere in their empire is safe, Helen said. We can't match them ship for ship, but we can make them defend everything, which means they can't concentrate force anywhere. The plan was approved within hours. Commander Greg Foster led the first deep strike mission, taking a small fleet of fast attack ships through jump points that the Confederation considered secure. Their destination was a Valorian industrial complex 3 systems away from Earth. Remember, Greg said to his captains, we're not here to conquer. We're here to destroy their ability to support the war. Hit the shipyards, the fuel depots, the supply warehouses. Avoid civilian casualties when possible, but make them pay for attacking Earth. The human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valorian system. The defense platforms stationed there were designed to detect military threats and challenge them according to proper protocols. They were not designed to stop ships that immediately went into a full burn toward the inner system. Weapons armed and firing. Greg's ship led the assault on the main shipyard, a massive structure that had been building warships for 200 years. The yard's defenses activated, but they were set up for ship-to-ship combat, not for hit-and-run attacks by vessels using kamikaze drones and guided missiles. Fire all forward weapons, Greg ordered. Target the construction bays first. Missiles streaked across space, slamming into the partially built warships in the construction bays. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure as fuel stores and ammunition magazines detonated. Within minutes, 3 years of construction work was destroyed. Enemy fighters launching, his tactical officer reported. Ignore them. Hit the fuel depots and get out. The human ships swept through the system like a hurricane, destroying infrastructure that had taken decades to build. By the time the Valorian Defense Forces organized a proper response, the humans were already jumping away, leaving chaos in their wake. Similar attacks hit Confederation facilities across a dozen systems. Captain Beth Jordan led a raid on a Korthan supply depot, using stealth technology to plant explosives throughout the facility before the enemy even knew she was there. Lieutenant Sam Torres disabled a major communication relay station, cutting off a significant portion of the Confederation's intelligence network. The psychological impact was devastating. For thousands of years, the Confederation's core worlds had been safe. War was something that happened at carefully designated locations, far from civilians. Now suddenly nowhere was safe. The humans could strike anywhere at any time, and there was no way to predict where they would attack next. Back in the Sol system, the combined Confederation fleet finally reached Earth orbit. High Commander Thexlar and War Commander Zexnor stood together on the flagship's bridge, looking down at the blue planet that had caused so much trouble. "There," Zexnar said with satisfaction. "They cannot run now. They cannot hide. Order them to surrender, and if they refuse, we will bombard their cities until they have no choice." But Admiral Jake Morrison had no intention of surrendering. He had been preparing Earth's final defense, using every lesson learned from the past weeks of combat. "They expect us to protect the planet," Jake said to his staff. "They expect us to put ourselves between their weapons and our civilians. That's what the Confederation would do. What are we going to do instead?" Captain Susan Blake asked. "We're going to use their honor against them," Jake said, pulling up a tactical display. "The Confederation has rules about civilian casualties. They consider it barbaric to deliberately target non-military populations. That's one rule they won't break, even if we've broken all the others. So we use the civilian populations as shields?" Susan looked uncomfortable. "No," Jake said firmly. "We've already evacuated the coastal cities within orbital bombardment range. But the Confederation doesn't know that. As far as they're concerned, Earth is still fully populated. They won't risk mass casualties. It would undermine their entire claim to be the civilized ones." Lieutenant Kyle Rogers and his team had spent the past week planting false sensor readings throughout Earth's orbit. Fake population centers, false heat signatures, misleading energy readings. When the Confederation scanned Earth, they would see a planet with billions of vulnerable civilians. "Deploy the orbital platforms," Jake ordered, "but not as defenses. Position them to look like we're defending civilian centers." The human ships moved into positions that made no tactical sense from a military perspective. They scattered across Earth's orbit, each one positioned as if protecting a specific city or population center below. To the Confederation, it looked like desperate and ineffective defensive deployment. "They are fools," Zexnor said, studying the human positions. "They cannot possibly defend an entire planet with so few ships." "Something is wrong," Thexlar said quietly. He had learned to distrust the obvious when dealing with humans. "They must have a plan." "Their plan is to lose honorably," Zexnor scoffed. "Prepare to accept their surrender after the first bombardment." But before the Confederation could fire, the human ships opened fire first. Not at the alien fleet, but at apparently random points in space between the two forces. Missiles and energy weapons lit up the darkness, seemingly shooting at nothing. "What are they doing?" an alien officer asked, confused. The answer came seconds later when the entire region of space between the fleets erupted in explosions. The humans had seeded the area with thousands of mines, hidden debris, and weapons platforms, all invisible until activated. It was not a minefield in the traditional sense because it did not block passage. Instead, it created a zone of chaos and destruction designed to channel the alien fleet into specific vectors. "They are hurting us," Thexlar realized with shock. "They are controlling our movements." The Confederation fleet tried to advance, but every path forward led through gauntlets of fire. The humans had turned the orbital space around Earth into a maze where they controlled every turn. Ships that tried to force through took damage. Ships that tried to go around found themselves exposed to human attack ships waiting in ambush. Major Rachel Green watched the battle from a hidden command center on Earth's moon. Her job was coordinating the defensive systems. But more importantly, she was analyzing the alien response. Every ship movement, every tactical decision was being recorded and studied. "They're adapting," Rachel reported to Admiral Jake. "Zexnor is more aggressive than Thexlar. He's willing to take casualties to advance." General Casey Martin stood before the assembled Earth fleet commanders, her expression hard as steel. Behind her, a massive holographic display showed the current state of the war. What had started as one human system defending against a galactic empire had become something much larger. "Gentlemen and ladies," Casey said, "we are no longer fighting for survival. The Confederation has lost over 30% of their fleet. Their supply lines are in chaos. Their homeworlds are under constant threat. They're scared. Now we're going to make them terrified." She activated the display, showing targets scattered across Confederation space. For thousands of years, the Confederation has kept other species under their control through the threat of military force. Those species have never rebelled because they believed resistance was futile. We're going to show them it's not. Commander Greg Foster studied the targets. You want us to arm the subject species? Help them rebel? Better than that, Casey said with a dangerous smile. We're going to show them that the Confederation can be beaten. We're going to humiliate the most powerful empire in the galaxy so thoroughly that their authority collapses from within. The plan was ambitious and ruthless. Human strike teams would hit Confederation military targets, while simultaneously broadcasting the results to every species under alien control. Every defeat, every destroyed shipyard, every humiliation would be shown to billions of beings who had been told the Confederation was invincible. Captain Beth Jordan led the first demonstration mission. Her target was the Valorian Military Academy on their home world, where the Empire trained its officers and kept monuments to thousands of years of military dominance. Are we really going to attack their training center? One of her officers asked nervously. That's not a military target. That's cultural. It's a symbol, Beth corrected. And symbols matter. The Confederation uses symbols to maintain control. We're going to destroy those symbols. Her ship approached the Valorian homeworld using stealth technology that the aliens still could not reliably detect. The military academy was protected, but the protections were designed to stop fleet actions, not small infiltration teams. Beth and her soldiers landed under cover of darkness, using the planet's own weather patterns to mask their approach. The Academy's security was sophisticated but predictable. It followed protocols, and humans had learned to exploit protocols. Team 1 moved to the Memorial Hall, Beth whispered. Team 2, Tactical Operations Center. Team 3 with me to the Command Archive. They moved through the Academy like ghosts, avoiding guards who were trained to fight honorable enemies, not infiltrators who ignored every rule of engagement. In the Memorial Hall, Team 1 planted charges on monuments celebrating Valorian victories. In the Tactical Operations Center, Team 2 corrupted data and stole strategic plans. Beth's team reached the Command Archive where centuries of military knowledge were stored. Take everything, Beth ordered. Every tactical manual, every strategic doctrine, every historical battle analysis. If it helps us fight them, we take it. The data theft took 7 minutes. Then Beth activated the remote charges. The explosions that tore through the Valorian Military Academy were not devastating in terms of casualties. Beth had timed them for minimal loss of life. But the psychological impact was enormous. The most prestigious military institution in the Confederation had been violated. Their monuments to victory lay in ruins. Their secrets had been stolen, and the humans made sure every species in the galaxy knew about it. Broadcasting now, Beth said as her team evacuated. Let them all see what happens when you threaten humanity. The footage of the burning academy was transmitted across Confederation space. Along with it came a message in every major galactic language. The Confederation told you they were invincible. They lied. The Confederation told you resistance was futile. They lied. The Confederation told you they represented order and civilization. They lied. Humanity stands ready to help any species that wants freedom. We will teach you to fight. We will teach you to win. The response was immediate. 3 species in the outer territories sent secret communications to Earth. They had been under Confederation control for centuries, providing resources and labor. Now they wanted to know if the humans could really help them rebel. Lieutenant Sam Torres became Earth's ambassador to these potential allies. He met with their representatives on a neutral space station, speaking carefully and honestly. We cannot give you freedom, Sam said to the assembled aliens. You will have to take it yourselves. But we can teach you how. We can show you that the Confederation bleeds. We can prove that you do not have to accept their control. A representative of the Mishan species, a small gray-skinned people who had been mining resources for the Valorians for 200 years, looked at Sam with hope and fear mixed together. The Confederation says you fight without honor, the Mishan said, that you use tactics that are dishonorable and savage. They're right, Sam said bluntly. We fight to win. We use every advantage. We show no mercy to our enemies. Is that dishonorable? Maybe by their rules. But their rules were designed to keep them in power and you under control. Honor is a luxury for the powerful. Survival is the priority for the oppressed. Will you teach us? The Mishan asked. Yes, Sam said. We will teach you everything we know about warfare, tactics, and rebellion. But understand this, once you start, there is no going back. The Confederation will come for you with everything they have. You must be ready to fight, to suffer, and to die if necessary. Freedom is not given, it is taken. The Mishan representative was silent for a long moment, then nodded. Then teach us. We are ready to fight. Over the next weeks, human military advisors spread across the territories of species that wanted to rebel. They taught guerrilla tactics, sabotage techniques, and psychological warfare. Most importantly, they taught that the Confederation's power came from the illusion of invincibility, and that illusion could be shattered. Meanwhile, Admiral Jake Morrison and Captain Lisa Park were preparing humanity's most ambitious operation yet. They were going to strike at the Confederation's capital world, not to conquer it, but to send a message that nowhere was safe. "This is insane," one of Jake's officers said when he saw the plan. "The capital system has defensive platforms, patrol fleets, and planetary shields. We'll never get close." "We won't need to get close," Lisa said, pulling up tactical data. "Look at their defenses. They're designed to stop fleet actions, massive ships coming in for formal engagement. They're not designed to stop what we're planning. What they were planning was a single ship moving fast, broadcasting a message that would change the course of the war." Commander Pete Nelson volunteered to pilot the mission. His ship was stripped down for speed, carrying minimal weapons and maximum engines. It was a one-way trip and everyone knew it. "You don't have to do this," Jake said before Pete launched. "We can find another way." "No, sir," Pete said quietly. "This needs to be done. The Confederation needs to understand that even their capital is not safe. That even their leaders can be touched by this war. Someone has to show them. It might as well be me." Pete's ship entered faster than light travel, heading straight for the heart of Confederation space. The journey took 3 days. 3 days where he prepared himself for what was coming. When he dropped out of FTL at the edge of the capital system, every alarm on every defense platform started screaming. A human ship alone, approaching the most protected world in the galaxy. It made no sense. "Unidentified vessel, halt immediately," the Confederation Defense Forces transmitted. "You are in violation of protected space. Surrender or be destroyed." Pete did not respond. He pushed his engines to maximum and burned straight toward the capital world. Defense platforms fired, but he dodged with skill born from months of combat. Interceptor ships launched, but he was faster. For 17 minutes, Pete Nelson flew through the most heavily defended system in the galaxy, and nothing could stop him. He did not fire a single shot. He was not there to attack. When he reached orbit around the capital world, close enough that every sensor on the planet was tracking him, Pete activated his broadcast. It was transmitted on every frequency, hacked into every communication network, displayed on every screen across the capital world. The message was simple. It showed Earth, beautiful, blue, and free. Then it showed the Confederation fleet, broken and burning. Then it showed one sentence in the Confederation's own language. "We can reach you. We can touch your homes. We can take everything from you. End this war, or we will bring it to every world you control." Pete's ship was destroyed seconds later by concentrated fire from every weapon that could reach him. But the message had been sent. Billions of beings on the capital world had watched a single human pilot penetrate their supposedly impenetrable defenses and deliver a threat to their very doorstep. The psychological impact was catastrophic for the Confederation leadership. If one ship could reach their capital, what could 100 ships do? What could 1,000? The illusion of safety shattered. High Commander Thexler received the news while still trapped in the Sol system, unable to advance past Earth's defenses or retreat without admitting defeat. War Commander Zexnor raged about honor and duty. The stars around Earth had never seen anything like it. 3,000 Confederation warships arrived in formation, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. They came from every corner of the Empire, carrying weapons meant to turn planets to ash and ensure that humanity would serve as a lesson to anyone who dared defy the established order. High Commander Thexler stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the massed armada with mixed feelings. This should have been his moment of triumph. Instead, it felt like desperation. The Confederation had emptied its reserves, pulled ships from every defensive position, and gambled everything on this single battle. "All fleets report ready, Commander," his tactical officer said. "The Council has given authorization to use total force. Earth will be made an example." War Commander Zexnor's image appeared on the communication screen, broadcast to all ships. "Today, the Confederation restores order to the galaxy," Zexnor announced. "The humans have fought dishonorably, without respect for civilized warfare, but their tricks end here. Today, we show overwhelming power. Today, we remind the galaxy why the Confederation has ruled for 3,000 years. The alien armada began its advance, confident in its numerical superiority. 3,000 ships against the few hundred vessels Earth had managed to field. It should have been a massacre. Commander Jake Morrison watched the approaching fleet from Earth's orbital command center. Around him, humanity's defenders prepared for the battle that would decide everything. But they were not preparing the way the Confederation expected. All ships, final systems check, Jake ordered. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to make them destroy themselves. The human fleet scattered as the aliens advanced, not in retreat but in a coordinated dispersal that made no sense to the Confederation's military doctrine. Ships moved behind planetary bodies, into asteroid fields, taking positions that seemed random but were carefully calculated. They're running, Zexanor said with satisfaction. Pursue them. Show no mercy. But the humans were not running. They were setting a trap that would use the Confederation's own power against them. Captain Helen Cruz had spent 2 weeks planning this battle. She had studied every bit of intelligence, every captured document, every psychological profile. The Confederation was predictable because they always followed the same patterns. Helen was counting on that. Phase 1, Helen said calmly. Activate the beacon. A single signal pulsed from Earth, a communication on frequencies the Confederation used for military coordination. The message claimed to be from a disabled human command ship, broadcasting their position and calling for help. It was bait, and the aliens took it. There, Thexalar said, seeing the signal. A command ship. If we can capture their leadership, the human resistance will collapse. A quarter of the Confederation fleet broke formation to pursue the signal. They found the source, a small human vessel that appeared damaged and vulnerable. It broadcast distress signals and tried to flee, drawing the alien ships deeper into the asteroid belt. They're leading us into a trap, Thexalar said suddenly, recognizing the pattern. But he was too late. The asteroids around the Confederation ships suddenly came alive. They were not asteroids at all, but human ships covered in rock and ice, sitting cold and dark until the perfect moment. Hundreds of vessels activated simultaneously, catching the alien fleet in a crossfire from every direction. But even that was not the real trap. The real trap was what happened next. Captain Lisa Park watched as the alien fleet tried to return fire, activating their weapon systems all at once. That was when the human infiltration teams, hidden in the asteroid belt for days, activated their surprise. Months ago, when human forces had raided Confederation supply depots, they had done more than destroy resources. They had poisoned them. Subtle changes to fuel compounds, tiny modifications to ammunition, small corruptions in software. Nothing that would be detected during normal inspections, but enough to cause problems under combat stress. Alien ships found their weapons misfiring, energy cannons overloaded, missile tubes jammed, shield generators flickered. It was not catastrophic, but it was enough to create chaos. And in combat, chaos was deadly. What is happening? Zexnor demanded as reports of malfunctions flooded in from across the fleet. Unknown, Commander, his engineering officer replied frantically. Multiple systems are experiencing failures. It's like everything is breaking at once. It's sabotage, Thexalar said, understanding dawning. They sabotaged our supplies weeks ago. They have been planning this from the beginning. The realization came too late. The Confederation fleet, massive and powerful, was tearing itself apart from within. Ships collided as navigation systems failed. Friendly fire incidents increased as identification systems malfunctioned. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Phase 2, Helen ordered. Deploy the swarms. Humanity had learned early that they could not match Confederation ships in direct combat, so they stopped trying. Instead, they built thousands of small, cheap drones. Each one was barely more than an engine, a guidance system, and an explosive. They were dumb weapons by human standards, but there were so many of them. The drones swarmed the Confederation fleet like insects. Point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. They attached to hulls, disabled sensors, clogged weapon ports. Each individual drone did minimal damage, but together they were devastating. "This is not warfare," Zexnor shouted in frustration. "This is not honorable combat, this is madness." "No," Jake Morrison said quietly, knowing the alien commander could not hear him. "This is war, real war. The kind your species forgot was possible." Admiral Gary Chen coordinated the defense from his flagship, watching as the plan unfolded. The Confederation had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but humanity had preparation, cunning, and the willingness to fight in ways the aliens found unthinkable. "Sir, the Confederation is trying to regroup," his tactical officer reported. "They're pulling back to reorganize." "Don't let them," Gary ordered. "Keep the pressure on, make them react, not think." Human ships harassed the alien fleet constantly, never engaging in prolonged combat but never stopping their attacks. It was death by 1,000 cuts, exhausting and demoralizing. The Confederation could not rest, could not reorganize, could not implement their superior tactics. General Linda Hayes led the ground-based defense, coordinating the planetary weapons that the aliens did not know existed. When Confederation ships tried to approach Earth directly, they found themselves facing surface-to-orbit weapons that violated every treaty the Confederation had about planetary bombardment. "They're targeting civilian areas," an alien captain reported in horror as human weapons locked onto approaching ships. But those were not civilian areas anymore. Earth had evacuated populations weeks ago, turning cities into fortresses. What looked like population centers were actually weapon emplacements and military installations. Once again, humanity had turned the Confederation's assumptions against them. "They will not fight fair," Thexler said, something like respect in his voice. "They will not fight by our rules. They will use every advantage, every deception, every tactic we consider dishonorable." "Then we must do the same," Zexnor said. "Forget the rules. Forget honor. Kill them all." But it was too late to change doctrine. The Confederation had spent 3,000 years building a military culture based on honor, protocols, and established rules. They could not suddenly become guerrilla fighters or embrace tactics they found repugnant. They were locked into their way of warfare as surely as if they wore chains. Lieutenant Sam Torres watched from his diplomatic post as messages flooded in from across Confederation space. The subject species were rebelling. Not just 3 species, but dozens. They had seen the mighty armada gather, seen it travel to Earth, and seen it struggle against a single world. The illusion of Confederation invincibility was shattered. "They're losing control everywhere," Sam reported. "Half their territory is in open rebellion. The other half is waiting to see what happens here. Then we make sure they see a victory," General Casey Martin said. "Not just military victory. Complete psychological victory. We break the Confederation so thoroughly they never recover." The battle raged for 6 hours, but it was not really a battle in any traditional sense. It was a demonstration of the difference between ceremonial warfare and total war. The Confederation kept trying to regroup, to establish proper formations, to fight the way they had been trained. The humans kept disrupting them, attacking from unexpected angles, using tactics that were considered too dishonorable to counter. Commander Greg Foster led a suicide mission that crippled the Confederation's command ship, not through military might, but through a cyber attack that crashed their entire communication network. Captain Beth Jordan organized an infiltration team that sabotaged 3 capital ships from within, turning them into uncontrollable hazards that their own fleet had to destroy. Major Dan Cooper's psychological warfare reached its peak when human broadcasts started showing footage of the battle to every species in the Confederation. They did not show human victories. They showed Confederation ships in chaos, alien commanders, confused and helpless, the mighty armada unable to defeat one small planet.